Welcome to Oz. We know that we dwell in Oz always, for God is omnipotence, omnipresence, omniscience, omnibenevolence, and that's short Oz. We dwell in the allness of God. Welcome to this celebration of your wondrous soul. We've chosen this story to symbolize the soul's unfoldment, and because it would bother so many mainstream Christians that we just had a ball with it. A little boy that's a dear neighbor that comes from another religious tradition told me that his minister said that Halloween is devil worship. And I said, "Be gone, you have no power here." You see, you know the movie so well because you know that something Glinda, the good witch from the north, Spirit, says to the wicked witch of the west when the wicked witch of the west threatens Dorothy in Munchkinland. These things are all very well known to us. And it seems to me, since most people know the story of the Wizard of Oz better than they know most Bible stories, it would be an excellent idea to use this story to tell how in every story we're hearing the Christ story. And the truth of the Christ is spoken through all the myths and legends and the movies that we love best. For truly there's only one story, the story of the unfolding soul. Although we know that Hollywood changed this story, which was written in 1900, by the way, that's when the New Thought movement and unity were really getting started, Hollywood added its own special touches, and I can't say for sure that they could have known in any way how clear the symbols would speak to us. But somehow that infinite mind indwells each and every one, and the stories begin to speak to the soul. We hear the same truth even in The Wizard of Oz. You remember the story how Dorothy arrived in Oz after having quite an adventure at home. So we back up just a little bit and remember what was happening before the movie turned Technicolor. When Dorothy was at home, she was trying to get everyone to listen to her because she had a problem. This really speaks to most of our hearts. We know what that can be like. Auntie Em and Uncle Henry and the three farmhands, which we know pretty clearly later are going to be the Scarecrow and the Lion and the Tin Man, are all too busy to hear her dilemma. The problem is Toto, and I think he represents the body experience, is in trouble for chasing a cat, the desires of life. And you know whose cat it was? Elvira Gulch. She's pretty dreadful. You remember her. When I first met her when I was little, I crawled under the chair in the movie theater. She was the scariest thing I could ever imagine, the embodiment of evil, even before she had the makeup on. She arrives at the Gale home. By the way, isn't that interesting that Dorothy's last name was Gale, which in a way speaks of the wind, and in Hebrew the word for spirit is ruah. So we're being told in a sort of subliminal way that we're going to hear a spiritual story about a spiritual being going through a magical adventure. And that, in other words, is your story. For you are a spiritual being too, just as wonderful as Dorothy Gale, and your experience can be just as amazing as Oz. Why, this morning, Susan Krupa, who is singing for us today, arrived in her Dorothy outfit. She said all the way she was concerned because some people were not driving carefully. What would she do if the policeman had to stop her? And she got out as Dorothy. And I said, well, you can say, it looks like we're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. That line works pretty well at a lot of times in life, doesn't it? I love this costume, don't you? It really makes me feel good. I like it. I really do. I've wanted to have this on all my life. I think every woman wants to wear this, right? Because it just speaks to our hearts. There are reasons why it does, by the way. The very suggestion that there could be such a thing as a good witch flies in the face of patriarchal religion. Remember, Christianity is responsible for convicting, torturing, executing, often horribly, thousands of so-called witches, most of them women, and with them, in many cases, their cats in medieval times. Well, the trouble with that was the cats kept the rats under control. And when the rats were given free rein, they spread the bubonic plague all over Europe, and a third of the population died. So be careful to cats. In the story, Dorothy very much wants to protect Toto, who keeps getting into trouble, and she's talking to the farmhands about it. You'll notice that the one who's going to be the scarecrow later, well, he keeps talking about thinking your way out of problems, but he himself is not very clear thinker yet. And then there's one that speaks about courage and bravery. He says, go right up to old Miss Gulch and spit in her face. But then when Dorothy falls in with the swine and the pin, he's so frightened that he nearly faints. So he obviously hasn't demonstrated that faculty. By the way, when we see at the beginning of the story that the main character has fallen into the pig pen, why, we have to know we're going to be hearing about the prodigal. You remember the prodigal son in the Bible? He found himself among the swine and then realized that he must go home to his father's house. And so we know already we're going to hear about a soul on her way to the father's house of her own understanding. And then, of course, there's the guy that's going to be the Tin Man, and he keeps talking about doing important things to show that he is a benefactor of humanity, but he isn't doing anything. Our story as we go through life is simply this. We have all the spiritual faculties that we require to see our problems solved completely, but we must discover them and we must use them. So if dressing up like Glinda, the good fairy, the good witch, who means really God's love in divine action, helps me to remember that God's love is always working in our world, then I very much recommend that you get costumes like this. You can borrow this if you can fit in it. And I am decidedly larger than the original Glinda. Do you know she was 54 years old when she made the movie? That she was the widow of Flo Ziegfeld. Remember him? They had lost all their money in the crash, but she didn't give up. She was in more than 80 movies and well known for her positive words. She said things like this: age is something that doesn't matter at all unless you're a cheese. And she also said, a woman of 40 should be making up her mind, not her face, to be beautiful. What a wonderful thought. And we automatically accept her as one of our own. So Billy Burke, Glinda the Good Witch, you're preaching unity, whether you knew it or not. Well, when Elvira Gulch shows up, she demands that Toto be given over to her. She's going to have him destroyed. Isn't that the ultimate fear of life? That something will happen to us, that we won't be in control, that this life that we love so dearly will be taken away. It's the ultimate fear. So Dorothy, in her desperation, so frustrated that no one is doing anything to help her, runs away. And of course she runs into the professor. Remember him? Professor Marvell. And he speaks of having performed before the crowned heads of Europe. And we know immediately that he is a humbug. But he represents that psychic alternative that can seem so very appealing. He's going to give Dorothy a reading, remember? And while her eyes are closed and she's deep in a trance, he simply searches through her little basket that she's been carrying and discovers significant things about herself, a photo of her family, the house, the farm, and he tells her that he is seeing in his crystal ball that someone at home misses her very much and she must go home. She turns to follow that direction and realizes a storm is brewing. I think in many ways, the storm is one of the very best things that happens. If only we could know that in our own lives, when storms happen that they are the very best things, for ultimately they will lift us up and take us to an Oz of greater possibility if we will just trust. She gets home, finds Toto has escaped the terrible Miss Gulch, and in trying to hide him, does not go down to the storm cellar with the family, the subconscious, I suppose. Meantime, the storm is whipping up. It tears out a window, perception, that bonks Dorothy right in the head. She is judging by appearances. And the next part, you remember, the dream begins. She is swept up above and beyond everything that seems familiar and lands with a thud in Munchkin Land. It's there that we see the beautiful pink bubble descending. Isn't it amazing that a character that only was appearing in the movie for 12 minutes has so impacted this culture that everyone who sees the Glinda costume knows immediately what it is? Well, I recommend wearing a costume like this if you have a difficulty to face. I'm going to wear it to the grocery store. And I remember going someplace to purchase something and having a great deal of difficulty with the very rude shop person. I'm going back as Glinda. Just think if you were going to be audited and had this to wear. Well, it could go very well for you or it could go very badly. I guess the decision would be for you to know, are you a good witch or a bad witch? Glinda has to ask that question. Witches are simply people who make things happen by their thought. And we have a choice. We can create very negative conditions by our thought, and that would make us bad witches. Or we can help create a heavenly harmony by the way we think and by the way we speak, and that's our choice. Now, of course, Dorothy's perplexed. She has heard only the message of the old paternalistic religion saying, witches are old and ugly, and all the Munchkins laugh. Because Glinda then responds, but I am a witch, as if to say, the power that really is the power of this universe cannot be used for evil. There is only one power. A very dramatic teaching to have appeared in 1939 in the middle of an America just recovering from a depression, especially involving people from a farm in Kansas where a huge percentage of farmers were losing their farms because of the terrible droughts, dry conditions, and the storms that would wipe them out. In other words, the message to humanity in the midst of its most difficult challenges is this message: you have the power within you. Well, the house has landed right on the Wicked Witch of the West, and you remember her feet sticking out from under that house with those ruby slippers on it. I think the ruby slippers could represent the understanding of spirituality. She has not used the understanding well, so of course the house, consciousness, puts an end to her. And Dorothy is very surprised, for she hasn't done these things on purpose. But Glinda has to ask her, because the point is, the decision of whether you're a good witch or a bad witch in some situation comes only from you. Your self-realization is the key to the whole story. It's not what someone else would call you. It's what you know yourself to be. Be that, and you will triumph. In that part of the story, Glinda takes the ruby slippers by magic and transports them to the feet of Dorothy. She is mysterious about their power. She simply points out that the Wicked Witch of the West, who then appears with great fanfare, and isn't she just about the best character in the whole show? She scared me so much when I first saw her. I got right underneath the seat, and I still remember that feeling of fear. Well, she threatens Dorothy. You'd better give me those ruby slippers. But Dorothy cannot give her power away. If only we knew that. For those who seem to want to take away our selfhood, our self-esteem, our power, they cannot take it. It's only up to us to give it. And Dorothy's been instructed by her intuition, her Glinda, to stay fast, close to her intuitive guidance, her spiritual understanding. Well, At that point, remember, that's when the witch threatens Glinda, and Glinda, as if to say, "Get thee behind me, Satan," says, "Rubbish! You have no power here. Be gone before someone drops a house on you." Oh, the Munchkins are giggling. I love them. I think they remind us that in our innocent thoughts, we are all children of God. And I love the part when the little ones come up and they have messages to Dorothy. "We'll represent the Lollipop League." Remember that part? Do you know how you can talk like that? Just say, I discovered this. Came to me in a dream. You just say G and D, those letters, over and over again. G, D, da, 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 da. Ding dong, the witch is dead. It works just like that. And if you have some challenge that you're wishing was over, try singing a little song like that in a Munchkin voice, and you'll see how silly it is to let it scare you. Well, at that point, Dorothy is hurried on her way on the yellow brick road. Everything that we know collectively in consciousness about the pearly gates is that they open onto streets paved with gold. So it's a perennial symbol of the spiritual path of the soul. She's encouraged to go and find the wizard, which I believe is the God of our understanding. We turn to God, we turn to religion, trusting that somehow there'll be a magical answer, an answer that won't involve personal transformation. And of course, we know the answer to that. She discovers, naturally, at a fork in the road, a place of decision, the Scarecrow. He's hung up on what could be interpreted as a cross, but also seems to be a good symbol for a mental hang-up. He's stuck, and Dorothy gets him free through her positive action. He's afraid of only one thing, a lighted match, which, because the witch uses fire all the time in the movie, is sort of a symbol of the consuming ego and how dangerous it can seem to get too much of ourselves, too much pride. It absolutely ruins our thinking and stops everything else, and that's what the witch is going to be doing in a few moments. Well, then they find the Tin Man, and you know what he wants? What is it? He wants a heart and oil. I think the oil is a very good symbol. In the Bible, remember, it's the oil of joy for mourning, a symbol of the bliss and happiness of spirit, a symbol of the sanctification of prayer. And it's used throughout the movie. When you see it again, watch for it, and you'll see what a spiritual blessing it represents. He's gotten stuck in the rain, and at every few moments throughout the movie, until he discovers himself, he bursts into tears. He is emotion, love. Oh, what a wonderful thing to have. But if it goes off in an emotional tantrum all the time, one becomes quite ineffective. And so it is that he rusts to stillness unless his emotions are controlled by divine direction. Then we find the lion. Isn't he a favorite? But he's all alone in the forest. He brags and bullies, and yet he's terribly afraid. Well, what we know now through modern psychology is that those who intimidate are really very frightened. We know this suddenly about the lion as he reveals that he's afraid and hasn't taken hold of his dominion. I noticed at this point in studying the story that throughout the Gospels, Jesus brings with him 3 special disciples at several miraculous incidents: the Transfiguration, feeding the multitudes, several opportunities. And they are James, whom Fillmore says represents wisdom, and John, whom all agree represents love, and Peter, who is so clearly the cowardly lion walking right out of Scripture. If we have these 3 qualities quickened, we can meet all the witches of error appearances. So they start off together. But then they discover that the witch has bewitched the apples of the tree. Remember? We can't help but being reminded of Eden. Here is our new little Eve, this time with pigtails, choosing the apple from the tree. Dorothy must continually choose. One question you might ask, if you're on a yellow brick road right now, some journey taking you to a higher wizard of thought, is what choices am I making? What choices are good for me and all concerned? Now they get past the bewitched trees, and things seem to be going pretty well. They're skipping along and singing, almost at the point of beholding the Emerald City, which is the kingdom of heaven, the realm of infinite possibilities, the heart's desire that they've been praying for, when all at once something happens. I think we find it very close to human experience. We know so much truth, don't we? If only we would keep remembering all the truth that we truly know. Forgetfulness can be our worst enemy. Watch what the Wicked Witch concocts next.
Puppies will put them to sleep. Sleep. Now they'll sleep.
There's Emerald City. Oh, we're almost there at last, at last. It's beautiful, isn't it? Just like I knew it would be. He really must be a wonderful wizard to live in a city like that.
Oh, come on, Anne. What are we waiting for?
Nothing. Let's hurry.
Yes, let's run.
Come on. Come on. Hurry. Hurry. Oh, look.
Come on. Look, you can see it here. It's wonderful. Emerald City.
Oh, what's happening? What is it? I can't run anymore. I'm so sleepy.
Here, give us your hands and we'll pull you along.
Oh, no, please. I have to rest for just a minute. Toto, where's Toto?
Oh, you can't rest now. We're nearly there. Don't cry. You'll rust yourself again.
Come to think of it, 40 wigs wouldn't be bad.
Don't you start it, too.
No. We ought to try and carry Dorothy.
I don't think I could, but we could try.
Len.
Yes.
Oh, now look at him. This is terrible.
Here, Tin Man, help me.
Oh.
Oh, this is terrible. Can't budge an inch. This is a spell, this is.
It's the Wicked Witch. What do we do? Help! Help!
It's no use screaming at a time like this. Nobody will hear you. Help! 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 It's snowing. No, it isn't. Yes, it is. Oh, maybe that'll help. Oh, but couldn't help. Does help. Dorothy, you're waking up.
Oh.
Unusual weather we're having, ain't it?
Look, he's rusted again. Oh, give me the oil can, quick.
Here.
Oh,
Oh,
quick. Oh,
he is rusted.
here.
Here.
Oh, quick. Oh, oh. Curse it, curse it. Somebody always helps that girl.
Somebody always helps the soul when the soul is receptive. Of course, the scarecrow is right. Crying out, beseeching, doesn't really reach anyone's ears, but it does prepare the soul to be receptive. And just at that moment, when there is no way out, suddenly, against all reason and hope, divine grace. And that surely is the answer to prayer. Well, of course, they're on their way. They reach the Emerald City and are rejuvenated by the consciousness of eternal life thoughts. But then they are told, and I think by a good symbol of organized religion, You can't see the Wizard of Oz. Nobody know how. Remember that? But Dorothy weeps. She has come so far, she says. And we see the wizard at that point dressed as the doorkeeper, and his heart is touched. It's not that tears change God's nature, but that they allow us to be truly receptive. For then when she is before the wizard, and it announces with all that sound and fury, "I am Oz, the great and powerful," she responds, "I am Dorothy, the small and meek." And that truly is the way to approach God in prayer. Although the God of our understanding is still a kind of fire and brimstone God, and he threatens and intimidates and gives tasks through which they must prove themselves. So they set off with this in mind: bring back the wicked witch's broomstick, which is simply a magic wand in a way, used in the wrong way. They go to find it. Well, those winged monkeys, those worries of life get in the way, and they kidnap Toto. They get the body consciousness quite caught up. The witch says, "I'll trade you this Toto for those ruby slippers." Dorothy agrees. Truly a Christ figure, she's willing to give herself over to spare others, and that shows her spirituality. But once she is there, she is confronted with the witch's worst weapon, the hourglass. And don't we know that can seem the most awful weapon, time. It seems to take from us all that we would hold dear. But you'll remember too that just at the conclusion of the film, she throws that hourglass down. That's when we begin to know that in spirit there is no distance and no time. And just as Billy Berg said, you don't have to worry about age unless you're a cheese. At that point, the witch is about to destroy the scarecrow, and the threat is you'll lose your power to think clearly, your heart will break, and of course you'll lose your faith before you finally go yourself. But when Dorothy sees that the fire is touching to that scarecrow, her ego beginning to affect her thinking, she throws the water on it, kind of an unthoughtful baptism that of course destroys the witch. And you remember what she says. "Oh, what a world, what a world. To think that a good little girl like you could destroy all my beautiful wickedness." We begin to remember she has no real power. Then back in Oz, when the Scarecrow, the Lion, and the Tin Man and Dorothy discover that the wizard is nothing but a humbug, in other words, the anthropomorphic concept of God cannot answer prayer, because your prayer has already been answered by the infinite Spirit of God that indwells you. And so he simply gives, in response to their requests, a diploma, so that the Scarecrow becomes a doctor of thinkology, remember? And then he gives a testimonial to the Tin Man and says to him, "Remember, you are measured not so much by how much you love, but by how much others love you." And then she gives the badge of courage to the Lion, who suddenly realizes he has been a hero all along. This must be the task of the highest religion, simply to acknowledge that you are already the all-powerful one. Well, of course, Dorothy doesn't quite know it yet, and she realizes she can't be helped just by the simple psychologies of the wizard. She wants to go home. The wizard says he'll take her, you remember the part. But when they get in the balloon basket ready to go, Toto once again is chasing a cat. And Dorothy gets out to chase him, and the balloon takes off. And the wizard, because he is a god created by man consciousness, human consciousness, says, "I can't come back. I don't know how it works." And then, of course, when all else is lost, Glinda appears, and she reminds Dorothy, "You've had the power all along." And of course, Dorothy asks to take Toto home too. Yes, We're speaking of the complete resurrection. Ever notice how the winged globe we use here is like a pink bubble of love in the middle? And every time we think of it, we might think of Glinda, because the answer is the resurrection is for body and mind in spirit. And so she says, when you're ready, simply know the truth and think of it 3 times on the levels of spirit, soul, and body. And say to yourself, there's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home.
And think to yourself, there's no place like home. There's no place like home.
There's no place like home. There's
Close
no
our
place
eyes and
like
know God dwells within me. I am God's very own child. And as I awaken from the dream of any seeming limitation, I perceive I have been home in the presence of God all along. And if I ever go looking for my heart's desire again, I'll know to find it in my own backyard. Let's say her words together. There's no place like home, and that home of spirit is within you. God bless you. Thank you. Oh, that's very kind. Thank you. Okay. From now on, when you see The Wizard of Oz or think about it, I hope you'll simply remember its message, that God lives within you. And in your own wondrous self-discovery, you'll discover you live in his presence always. Let's take this opportunity to bless our offerings of love and substance as we take them into our hands. Divine love in and through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, Father, Mother, God. Let's speak the word together. Divine love in and through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, Father, Mother, God. And let's remain in this high consciousness as we dream with Dorothy, the soul of our soul, of a land somewhere over the rainbow.